Hey everybody, my name's Daniel, and this is why I gave It Chapter 2 a C+. 27 years ago, the Losers Club killed Pennywise, the murderous supernatural clown. But 27 years later, he's back, so they have to return to their hometown of Derry, Maine, to not only take out Pennywise for good, but also confront the demons that they have tried so hard to forget. It Chapter 1, I was not a fan of. I was bored, I didn't like the tone, I saw it for a second time with my wife and her friends, and despite knowing what was happening, I was still bored. I was even more so because I knew where we were and I just wanted it to speed up. And I was so worried that for Chapter 2, because of that 2-hour 46 runtime, that it would be a slog. But thankfully, in the first 45 minutes to an hour, it flew by. I don't know if it's just the general pacing, I don't know if it's this new cast of actors that I love, I don't know if that addition of characters that aren't just kids in a horror movie. I've seen that. I haven't seen Bill Hader play a stand-up comedian in a horror movie, so that immediately kind of freshened me back up. Also, this movie starts off with a bang, just kind of like the first one did, and that part was great too with Georgie. Here, there's a violent opening, it's tough to watch, it gets you in the mood immediately for the film. You know that Derry is a messed up town with terrible sins, and the fact that it's a small town and nobody wants to talk about it keeps it kind of insular, and it's almost like putrefying this town from the inside out. The actual violence, at least in the beginning, it's a rough one to sit through, but it's very Stephen King. And Stephen King paints with broad, heavy strokes. He will not keep his opinions quiet. He knows who the villains are. He will thrust them at you. He will make them as villainous as possible, as villainous as he sees them. So it's a dangerous weapon to wield, but thankfully I think Stephen King is on the right side of history here. And so when he does unleash with the horror, and vice versa, this movie unleashes with the horror, I think it's done in rough but necessary strokes. Let's go with that. The broad horror, though, does kind of deviate into the actual horror elements of the movie, and sometimes that can bum me out. Instead of something that's more character-driven, instead of something that's a little bit more intimate or subtle, which I think this movie's great at, sometimes this movie will choose to go for the weird scare, like, let's see what kind of CGI we can throw at you now, and oh, it's spooky. But that doesn't always make for the better scare. And sometimes this can happen within the same scene. At least if the CGI effect, I think, fit with the character, it would work. But sometimes I think this movie is just a spook house or a spook show, where it really doesn't need to be. I really like these characters, and I like them more throughout this movie, especially, and this is something that we were all kind of worried going in, we thought the flashbacks would ruin this movie. I don't think so. I think the cast, young and old, they balance off each other really well. I like the way these flashbacks transition seamlessly through. And at least for that first half of the movie, I really enjoyed that those flashbacks actually felt like they were developing our characters. It felt intertwined. I really liked the way the screenplay moved. I don't know what happened after the first hour. It's the scene in the teaser. I don't know what happened, but after that scene, the movie really took a dip. And it felt like we were doing a lot of rinse and repeat with the screenplay. They set up this device in order for the Losers Club to, work towards killing Pennywise. That's very rinse and repeat, almost feels like a bunch of shorts stitched together. And the first couple are really good. But sometimes, as is in like anthology movies, even Creepshow, there are some duds in the bunch. And so I can't help but feel like that was kind of slowing me down, especially when I started being able to count, like, okay, we're at this point, we should be getting done with this point soon, but this part of this scene is really dragging out, and just, I don't care. The scares got less intense, or less really character-driven, and I don't know, it just felt kind of weak for me. I love, however, what Muschietti does with, again, those subtleties. The lighting in this movie is glorious. Fantastic spook show elements here. It feels very much like a stage. It feels theatrical. It feels like a fun house, and I really enjoy that stuff. I also love the timing. You can tell he's a student of Carpenter because the first scene, full scene with Pennywise, is easily the scene's best movie, and it totally relies on you not knowing exactly when things are gonna go down. And while we're on the subject of Pennywise, my God, Bill Skarsgard is a superstar. That guy, every time he's on screen, every tick in his face lets you know every gamut of emotion, from Pennywise being pathetic to carnal to just scheming and just disgusting and delightfully wicked. All these elements are in that man's face and his physical performance. He's easily the best actor in this film. And now, a quick ranking of the Losers Club from best to worst. You've got Richie, Eddie, Ben, Bill, Mike, Bev, and Stan. Fun fact, when I was writing the notes for this episode, I totally forgot Stan was in this movie. And it's so weird because he does have an important part to play, but the character just doesn't leap off. It doesn't really do anything. Bev has some cool character work, but I don't know what it is with Jessica Chastain. It felt like she was looking in the deadlights through a lot of the movie. Just didn't feel any passion in that performance, to be honest. The ones that I start liking, Mike. Mike had a much diminished role in the first movie. He's got a lot bigger role now, and I really like how Isaiah Mustafa plays it. However, after that first hour, Mike disappears for like an hour of the movie, and I'm like, dude, why do we keep putting Mike in the sidelines? He's so fascinating, and I love the way his performance, Mustafa's, mirrors the younger Mike. I like how the mirrors between most of these people, between their older and younger counterparts, work really, really well. We go to Bill, James McAvoy, who isn't a perfect kind of counterpart to Jaden Martell, but he does get a really good load of meaty scenes. You get to see him play around with the stutter, so to speak, and I don't know, I like what he's given to do, and there are some scenes where I really did feel McAvoy trying to push out the emotion there. Now you kick into Ben, who is Daddy. This movie deserves an Oscar for casting directors because, my God, when you look at that guy's face and you look at Ben, it is dead on. You can tell immediately that these guys would sort of be related. You could really tell that. I love the way Ben carries himself in this movie. I like how he acts when he's not the focus of a scene. You can always tell that he's in it and he's paying attention and he is that character. I really love the way that actor carries himself. And you move up to Eddie, played by James Ransone, who I know from Sinister and Sinister 2 more specifically. If you want to talk about uncanny looks, I mean, Jack Dylan Glazer, James Ransone, father and son, might as well, could be. There's even a scene, I know Muschietti was doing this to brag, there's even a scene where you see them transition from the older Eddie to the younger Eddie, and it's flawless. It's just flawless. And I really love how Ransone gets to be really nutty, how he gets to regress back into that sort of hypochondriac Eddie as he's in Derry for a longer period of time. I just had a lot of fun with him. And even though he can be a pathetic, whiny little pissant, Eddie, that's Eddie. And I don't know, he gets given a lot to do in this film, and I had a lot of fun watching his character. But for me, the one that steals the show from beginning to end, it's Bill Hader as Richie, who is the comic relief, but he's perfect comic relief. So I really liked how he was able to carry the drama, how he was able to be really funny and hold his own with the scares too. I just like Richie when he's on screen, and that pairing between Bill Hader and Finn Wolfhard I do really enjoy as counterparts of each other. Problems with It Chapter 2. There's a lot of them. One of them is just too many callbacks to the first movie. I mean, lines, sequences, and it's not just to the first film, it's to other King movies and the mini-series itself. Whenever they were brought up, they just completely pulled me out of the movie, didn't think they were funny. Same as the first movie, inconsistent tone. And you can marry the funhouse goofiness with this sort of bone-chilling fear, but whenever this doesn't work, it's lame. And the comedy can undercut a good moment, and it just left me cold, and it left me angry sometimes, because the scene would start out great, and then there'd be a stupid line, or there'd be a really goofy CGI monster, and I'd go, well, that was wasted, why am I here? There's a running joke that adult Bill, who's a writer, can't write an ending to save his life. Kind of joking, poking fun at Stephen King there, I kind of like that. I know that's a joke, and I know it's self-aware, but the end of this movie is still a bad ending. I really hated the Pennywise design at the end of this film. Just stupid and dumb, and this thing went on for way too long. It indulged itself in these corny, sentimental moments that I just didn't think worked at all. The movie did not earn them. And whenever it did end, I understand the ending fits with the themes of the movie, but you can't help but feel like, that's it? Like, that's all you're gonna do? And my last thing for this movie, this is not Lord of the Rings. You don't need a Return of the King epilogue. You don't need a solid 10 minutes of the movie actually wrapping up. It felt like this movie could have ended 3 different times, and it just kept going and going, and I get it. Like, pick an ending and stick with it. But that's my time. If you want to keep hanging out with me, talking and learning about movies, subscribe to the channel. But right now, it's time for you to choose your own adventure. On this side, you've got my review of Good Boys, a comedy I really loved. And this one is my unboxing of the new Best Buy exclusive steelbook for Aladdin. So, you've got a decision to make, choose your own adventure, and I'll see y'all next time.